welcome you guys to another episode of Quarantine Chats. It's Quarantine Chats, episode 52. I'm joined by Trevor Williams, my co-host Isaiah Leung, and a special guest, Hansie. Hansie actually went to high school with both me and Isaiah. He was a track and field star as well as a football player for Mission. How you doing today, Hansie?
I'm doing well. How are you, Steven? It's a pleasure to have me on with your show today.
I'm doing great, man. I just, happy Friday to everyone. I'm ready to kick the show off, talk about all sorts of things like the Patrick Mahomes deal, the Bleacher Report NBA rankings. There's a lot of spicy topics for today, but I do want to go to my co-host Isaiah, who actually played on the Mission Valley basketball team with you and some of your friends, and he was a Yao Ming back there, right, Isaiah?
First of all, let's get something straight. I didn't play on the Mission Valley school basketball team, but I did play at Mission Valley, like the school on the basketball court. So I think that's where me and Hansie met. But just wanted to wish everybody a happy opening day. You know, baseball is officially back. We got basketball coming next week. The regular season resumes. We've got football training camps opening up next week as well. I mean, life is just returning to normalcy now. Like, I'm doing what I'm doing on a normal basis, which is check baseball scores on my phone and, rant to Steven about how the A's bullpen sucks and how I'm so disgusted even after one game. So let's go, man. Life is back to normal. COVID can't kill us, man.
All right, let's go to our other co-host, Trevor. How you doing over there in Pennsylvania?
Pretty good. I'm excited because I get my NCAA 14, so I get to play Steven finally.
Hey, don't turn the ball over, man.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to run all over you.
It's all those turnovers kill the drive, kill the game. But, if you minimize those, you can win it. So, I got to stay focused and play perfect games. That's all I have to do. But I'm excited to be on this show. It's been a while since I did a podcast episode, so I'm looking forward to this one.
I'm looking forward as well, man. It's been about a week. That's a lifetime in Isaiah terms, man. He's always dragging you on his shows.
Not anymore. After I started my new gig with the Stables Network, I've been podcasting like 4 or 5 times a week. I'm like the Stephen A. Smith of this network. And another point I gotta make before we go on to our topic is that, like, we're talking about NCAA 14. Listen, to all of you guys out there, this guy, Stephen Wang, is the easiest opponent I've ever played. I ran for over 400 yards.
I scored 92 points on you, bro.
I ran for 400 yards on this guy every game. So if you guys want to play him in NCAA, go ahead. He's so easy to beat.
Hey, it'll be your funeral. I'll drop 90 on you guys. No cap. All right, well, anyway, let's get into our topic. Before that, I want to make one more major announcement. Speaking of which, Isaiah, I want to say congratulations, to your new role in the Stables Network. It's going to be amazing for you. And I also want to announce that Quarantine Chats will be joining the Stables Network next Friday. So tune into that. And we're going to have a major, major announcement on that show as well. It's going to be a bombshell revelation. All right, without further ado, let's get into our first topic. Hansie's been wanting to come on all week to talk about the big Patrick Mahomes deal. This guy signs a 10-year deal, total of $475 million, up to $500 million after incentives. What are your initial thoughts on the deal and how the Chiefs are going to look in the future?
I think it gives a really good precedent for other quarterbacks in the league. That sometimes players' careers are not exactly guaranteed. Injuries can happen at any time. So I think the money that Patrick Mahomes is guaranteed at a young age gives him the stability that a lot of other players in the league are going to look for in their future contracts. So the biggest thing with Mahomes' deal is, I think, the ripple effect that it will have on other contract negotiations throughout the league. The guaranteed money for sure is something to think about. But another thing about the deal is I think the Chiefs might not exactly have the best success going forward. According to history, every team that has done a blockbuster deal with their quarterback has not done well in the following seasons afterwards. One example of this can be how Brady, actually being a superstar quarterback that he is, consecutively year after year took less money so that they would have enough cap space to be able to afford weapons around him. So with Tyreek Hill's rookie contract coming up, with a few of the other players around him, they're going to be wanting the big money. I don't think they're going to be able to field an offense and defense that's up to the caliber that it was there for the Super Bowl.
And I think that's a great point, Hansi. I really like in this situation. I think Patrick Mahomes is kind of like the LeBron James of football in our generation. And I think when you compare Mahomes to Brady, it's going to be that same comparison as LeBron to Jordan. Mahomes is clearly the more talented guy. I mean, you look at Mahomes' size, you look at how he runs on the field, how he throws the ball. Physically, you can't say like Brady's more talented of a passer or runner than this guy. Like Mahomes is hands down the better passer and athlete, but he's not going to have the same team success as Brady because you look at the deal and it's like, yeah, it's like $38 million a year at first, and then it goes up to 40s, and then it goes up to 60 for one of the years eventually. So the year by year breakdown is not that bad, right? But players coming into the league and coming onto the Chiefs aren't going to be like, oh, he's only making like 39 million or 40 million for this year. So it's not too bad considering the market. They're going to look at the total deal. Wait a minute. This guy's making a 500 million or 475 million dollar deal. Can I just get 1/3 of that? Because I'm the best tight end in the NFL. That's what Travis Kelce's going to say. That's what Tyreek Hill is going to say is one of the best receivers in the NFL. And that's what Damian Williams is going to say. It's not going to hurt them that much from like 2020 to like 2023 or 2024. But past that, when they start getting into these like contract negotiations, they're going to have to really give these massive deals to the supporting players of Mahomes. And that's where it's like going forward, they're not going to have any cap space to sign any upcoming rookies or young players on their roster if they become stars. So it's more of like in the future, his team success is going to be limited. But I think ultimately the discussion of Brady versus Mahomes is going to permeate throughout football for many years to come. And it's going to be that LeBron Jordan type discussion. You got the more talented, more flashy guy, and then you have the big winner, the big team player in Brady.
Well, I don't think we can really argue with Mahomes' capability because if you look at the last quarterbacks in the league that have gotten a contract like this, the amount definitely is unprecedented. The number of digits at the end of the zero, for sure, are unprecedented. But the 10-year contract, however, is not precedented. If we look at the last time a 10-year contract was awarded in the NFL, it was when Mahomes was actually 6 years old. It went to, if I believe correctly, it went to Michael Vick, and before that in 2004 to Brett Favre. So I think the caliber of talent that those two players got the 10-year contract, Mahomes is actually even better. So I think in terms of the Chiefs being able to lock down that 10-year contract is very key. They practically locked down their franchise quarterback for the next decade going into the 2030s.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very key as far as that. And I think you're right. I think, we have seen deals like this before with like Brett Favre. He had his 10-year deal. And then other people as well, like Donovan McNabb. Now, the key is going to be like as the years go by, will Mahomes be able to maintain that level of success and that deal? Because we have seen long-term contracts be terminated before in the NFL, and especially in the NFL, which is such an physical and injury-riddled sport. So, man, it's going to be definitely a big challenge for the Chiefs to maintain the success. But I think, out in the AFC West, they're pretty much like the AFC East 2.0. Like the AFC West, the way I look at it is the AFC West of the 2020s is going to be the AFC East of the 2000s. It's going to be dominated by the team with the best quarterback and possibly the greatest quarterback of all time, eventually in Mahomes.
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, the last two seasons, we've seen a return back to basic football. There's a lot of power run football. I've seen some I formations with the Chargers. I've seen a lot of I formation with the Lions. So I'm not exactly sure if passing is the way to go. But another thing with the Mahomes deal, if we compare that 10-year deal to the best 10 years a quarterback's ever had, so we can compare it to Brady's career. So he went to 6 Super Bowls. 3 of them he lost actually 2 of them he lost in the Super Bowl to the Giants, and then 1 in the championship round to the Broncos, I believe. And if we take that and measure it up against a Mahomes' deal, we can see that he'll make around $44 million a year if he matches the best quarterbacks who have ever done it. arguably, not even arguably, I'd say the record proves for itself. So I don't actually think Mahomes will actually be able to fulfill the deal that's in place, because right now with the 10-year deal, he'd have to be MVP every year and win the Super Bowl every year in this 10-year
Right.
contract to be able to fulfill it. So it is highly unrealistic to think that he'd be able to meet the full terms of his contract.
And that's why I brought up that it was like 475 million to 500, because to get the full like 505 million, he would have to make the Super Bowl every year. But that's only really like 5 to 4% of his deal. So my question was mainly like, fulfilling the deal as far as the year stretch, because you look at Aaron Rodgers, right? They already have his replacement lined up in Jordan Love. So that's going to be an interesting conversation. The last thing I'll comment, because we also asked about what this would mean for the Dak Prescott deal that is incoming for maybe the next season or so. I don't think it necessarily means too much for Dak. And I think there's like two sides of the coin. You have one side where it's like, you break down the Mahomes contract year by year, like he's not making that much per year necessarily. Like it's averaging about 47 million a year. Yeah, but like, 10 years from now, the market could be like 50 to 60 million dollars for quarterbacks, right? And so you look at it that way on a per year basis, you're like, okay, that's not really going to set a precedent for Dak, because Dak's not the best quarterback in the world. He's not Mahomes,
there's
right?
another way to look at it too, right?
But then there's the other side.
So in the pricing side, if you look at it, the reason they might have given him so much money is because over the span of 10 years, generally with price inflation and purchasing power going down, he's actually only making about 3/4 of that money over the period of that 10 years. So I'd say you're right in that regard.
But I think where the argument starts to break down is that this is still a 10-year deal, man. I mean, you look at Dak Prescott, he's looking for about $40 million a year, but it's only going to be for like half the time. He was only asking for 5 years. So, what he's going to say is, I've done nothing but win since my rookie year in the NFL, or since my first year starting. Mahomes got a 10-year deal, and you're telling me you can't even bank on for 5 years. Good luck. Good luck finding your next quarterback who can go a habitual 10-6 or 13-3 for you, because I'm out of here. And teams are going to go after Dak, man. I mean, like, he might not be even a top 10 quarterback, and he might not be like a top tier talent, but the dude has done nothing but win. He's had like a couple of like okay seasons, but on average, he has a winning record, and he has great stats to back it up.
I mean, the team stats is what matters, right? 8-8. I mean, you can't pay
8-8 one year, but he's had
quarterback.
his 13-3 years too.
That's true. I mean, I can't discount that. So I'll give you that.
Yeah, speaking of which, I just shared this post to Dak Prescott believers. Let's hover Dak Prescott's believers come in here and chime in about the possibility of Prescott's deal coming through with the Mahomes deal coming in. But I saw Isaiah shaking his head earlier. Isaiah, I want to get, some of your takes on the Dak situation, and as well as this Mahomes deal and the future of the Chiefs.
Listen, the reason why I was shaking my head is because the stuff that you keep saying about the AFC West is the new AFC East, that is absolutely blasphemous, man. It's obvious that you don't really watch
It's the
football.
truth, Isaiah.
It's not, dude. It's obvious you don't watch football, because look at it. The AFC West right now, yes, you have the Kansas City Chiefs. Their offense is loaded, but their defense last year somehow, some way was they managed to be okay, even though like they weren't really that good. They were bend, don't break, but they lost a lot of pieces this offseason. So I think that defense will be even worse. And then you look at the Denver Broncos. You guys know how much I like Drew Lock. I think he's a great quarterback upcoming. The Broncos made a lot of improvements on the offensive side of the ball, bringing in Jerry Jeudy from Alabama, who I believe was the steal of the draft. And they also brought in KJ Hamler, who is super fast as a wide receiver. And then you got Cortland Sutton there as well. He's a 1,000-yard Pro Bowl wide receiver. So wide receiving wise, I think the Broncos are loaded. Tight end, they got Noah Fant, who coming into the draft, everybody said that he has the potential to be the next George Kittle. Like, he has that talent. We'll see how Denver develops him. running game wise. They brought in Melvin Gordon. You add him to Philip Lindsay. Their offense is going to be stacked. Their defense last year was already pretty good, and that was without much talent in the cupboard. Vic Fangio did a fantastic job of maximizing that talent on the defensive side of the football. Now they bring in a guy in Jarrell Casey, who was a beast for the Tennessee Titans last year. I don't know why Tennessee released him, but Denver got him, and I think their offense, defense, they're going to be even better. They were 7-9. I expect them to probably win like 10 games this upcoming season. And then you look at the Raiders. Derek Carr last year had a fantastic season in terms of stat, and that was with a terrible wide receiving corps. Now they upgraded with Henry Ruggs, and they got other weapons to bolster that offense. So I think the Raiders would get even better. And the Raiders also made improvements on the defensive side of the ball as well, bringing in Corey Littleton from the Los Angeles Rams, and also that Silverwood, another linebacker from the Chicago Bears, who will strengthen their linebacking corps. So I think the Raiders will get better on offense and defense. And then the Chargers. The Chargers, they have all the pieces. Running game, offensive line, wide receiver, defense, they are stacked. The reason why they sucked last season was because they didn't have a quarterback. Phillip Rivers was washed up last season. They go out and they get Justin Herbert from Oregon, who I think he's going to be better. He's going to be better than Phillip Rivers. So out of those three teams that I listed, those three teams are like upcoming. So I don't know if they're going to topple the Chiefs this season, but you say how like the AFC West is going to be the new AFC East, like one team's going to dominate the division for 10 years. That's ridiculous, man. You got three up and coming teams.
I don't think Philip Lindsay is really going to help, man. He's been injury prone for like 4 years in a row. I had him in fantasy for 2 years, and he laid a goose egg, man. He didn't even play most of the time.
I had him in fantasy. He was good last season.
Nah, actually maybe last season. I didn't play last season, but the 2 years before that, oh my God, it was horrible. It was terrible.
I'm with Hansie here, and I think the more important point, besides Philip Lindsay and some of the Broncos running backs being pretty injury prone, including C.J. Anderson before that. You guys remember C.J. Anderson?
He's built on ice, bro. He's built on ice.
They were all built on ice and glass. Screw ice. They were built on ice, man. They just melted
glass
over
is
time.
stronger than ice.
Glass is stronger than ice, man. That's too nice for them. But I think the bigger point we got to remember is that the AFC East was not just a division that was dominated by the Patriots and it didn't allow any other teams into the playoffs. There were times when the Miami Dolphins or the Buffalo Bills got into the playoffs as a wild card, or may have even won the division that 1 year where Matt Castle was a starter, right? But the whole point was the reason why the Patriots were able to dominate the division so heavily was because, number one, they had the best quarterback in the world in Tom Brady and a great front office in the Patriots. And number two, they just were unstoppable at Foxborough. They might have lost a game in Miami or in Buffalo, but those teams rarely came over to Foxborough and took the game from the Patriots on their home field. I see that same dominance level for the Chiefs. The Chiefs Stadium, Arrowhead Stadium, let me remind you guys, is one of the loudest and most ruckus crowds in the NFL history. It is on par with what the Legion of Boom have in Seattle. And now you add that to like a just killer talent. The talent's the biggest thing. And then the front office that just keeps giving guys like Alex Smith, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce winning situations. That division is going to be theirs to win for a long time. Will they win every game? No, that's unrealistic. Obviously, the Raiders could sneak in. Obviously, the Broncos could sneak in. But the point is they're not coming into Arrowhead and taking the Chiefs. I want to go to Trevor now.
Steven, I like your take. And like you said, the Chiefs are basically in the driver's seat in that division. And they're going to be like the Patriots. They're going to be dominant for like the next, in my opinion, 3 years until that salary cap really hits a toll when they start losing their weapons. And you could see a quick scramble in that division trying to take power in the development. But like once that hits, I think like the Raiders would have probably one of the best chances once that scramble hits to capitalize on and try to win that division. The Denver Broncos are more of the lines that they really don't have that set forth quarterback yet. He still has time to grow and develop. So I can't really put them in that driver seat situation. Same with the Chargers. They have the weapons, but the quarterback's not there. And if you don't have a quarterback, it doesn't matter who your wide receivers are, and you don't have a front line for that, you're going to be like at the bottom of the division, like winning 5 or 6 games, and that doesn't carry you all the way to the playoffs. You need a good quarterback to get you there. And the Chiefs just have that entire system from front end to back end, and they're going to end up just being the driver's seat. So that's where I put my stance on the AFC West.
Yeah, and I think, man, as far as the division, I think you make a great point with the quarterbacks. The quarterback has to be on point. You can have some years where a quarterback that's not all that great talent-wise can get in because he has great pieces around him. Case in point, Jared Goff, Jimmy Garoppolo. But I look at some of these quarterbacks in the AFC West. I mean, Drew Lock and Justin Herbert. I love watching Oregon Ducks football. They have amazing college offense, and they have amazing talent. But Justin Herbert is not even going to be as good as Jimmy Garoppolo or Goff. Like, this guy's going to be a total bust. And none of these teams have any quarterback that can go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. So, yeah, you can get your 1 or 2 upset wins within the division. But the point is, you're not coming into Arrowhead and you're not taking that game in Arrowhead from the Chiefs. And that's what it's going to come down to every year.
I think you're missing one critical point here. I think no matter how good the offense of the Chiefs may be, we have to actually compare the offense of the Chiefs to the upcoming defenses of the teams in the division, right? Because it doesn't matter how good the offense is. If the defense can limit them to less points in the number they can score, even if a team puts up 15 points. But if the Chiefs score 14, they still lose. So that's an important part, I feel, that of the discussion that you guys have missed out on when talking about the rivalry in the division.
Right. And, I think the biggest thing is that Patrick Mahomes is going to be just a tough cookie to stop, man. This guy is definitely like a transcendent quarterback, and his targets aren't going away because the way that contract is set up, as we mentioned before, yeah, it's a lot in total money, but they're going to be able to fit Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill into the mix before the contract begins to really hit. Remember, the contract itself doesn't hit until year 3 from today. So like 2023 season or 2022 season. So we still got some time left for them to re-sign some of their players. And so I think they're going to keep that offensive core intact and be able to compete with some of those defenses. But maybe you could have some upset wins. I'm just saying, as far as the division, I see the Chiefs winning it 8 or 9 out of 10 times in the next 10 years.
Great. Hey, I just wanted to say, Hansie makes a great point. That's why I say the Denver Broncos is the team that I think could go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. Maybe not this year, but in the coming few years, because if you look at their defense is on the come-up. You've got Bradley Chubb on one end. He's a dynamic pass rusher. Von Miller on the other end. We know what he can do as a pass rusher. And
He's
now
old, though.
He's pretty young in terms of pass rusher age, but you got Jarrell Casey on the inside. That front line is going to be great for Denver. And then you talk about the back end with the corners. Bryce Callahan, when he was healthy, led the NFL in interceptions. If he can come back healthy, he will be a lockdown defender on one side on one side. And then the other side, I think they have AJ Boye, who also led the league in interceptions one year. So watch out for Denver. Plus, they got a defensive mastermind in Vic Fangio. We know what he can do on the defensive side of the ball, having done it with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, and we will see as this kind of contract progresses how the Chiefs are going to maintain that dominance. Definitely be very interesting to see another dynasty emerge from the NFL. And I just love to have that Mahomes and Brady debate. People are saying it's too early. Before LeBron even won a title, they're already comparing him to the GOAT. So I don't think it's too early. One MVP, one Super Bowl MVP, one Super Bowl championship in the first 2 years of starting. I think he's doing plenty fine in terms of pacing, and I think he's earned that hype. Let's move on to our next topic.
One more thing about Patrick Mahomes before we move on to our next topic. I just look at him. No matter what defenses are created in that AFC West, he's trailing by 3 touchdowns and still makes a comeback and wins the game.
That's right.
So how do you stop a quarterback that does that? Even if he goes down and goes up by 1, most of those quarterbacks in that division can't close out a game. I can guarantee you that. Maybe Derek Carr, but Drew Luck
Yeah, Derek Carr is pretty
and,
raw, but
and Sherbert can't close it out. I guarantee you they would probably go 3 and out, lose a game, and that's it. So it's like your defense can be there, but if Patrick Mahomes comes back from 3 touchdowns and wins a game, your defense is not really that good if you can't stop a quarterback like that.
and I think that's a great way to wrap up the segment, to see if Patrick Mahomes is really that transcendent type of talent in just any kind of defense, like including defenses we've seen like the Steel Curtain and the Broncos defense that won with Peyton Manning. Let's move on to our next topic, which is we're going to be talking about who the best player in the NBA is. But before we get to that, Hansie, I know you ran track and field and you played quite a bit of football growing up. So I got to ask you, as a sports fan, which one of the two is kind of closer to your first passion in your mother's sport between football and basketball?
I'd say basketball is closer to my mother's sport because I've played it longer. Football is definitely my passion because there's just nothing like it. You only get that small window to play in high school, and that's it. So it was fun while it lasted. So I'd say overall, I would take basketball as a more entertaining sport to watch because it's more fast paced. There's more that can happen in the span of a game. They score 50, 60, 70 buckets a game versus football, right? There might be five or six touchdowns total if we're lucky. Sometimes there might not even be any. So I say from an entertainment value, basketball is definitely prioritized over football in my perspective.
Yeah, for me, I think basketball is definitely my first love. It's got a great fan base amongst the Chinese because of Yao Ming, and Kobe really brought it overseas as well. So my dad kind of, when he was growing up in the USA, because he came over in the 90s and he kind of built his adult life around here. He kind of heard about Jordan and all of those guys. And then Yao Ming came up when I was growing up. So we really started getting into basketball. So basketball is really my first love when it comes to sports. But football is a close second, man. I think football, the game itself, is more entertaining because for me, like you mentioned, the scoring opportunities are more limited. For me, that's more entertainment because each score means more. And when people get into that goal line, oh my God, man, like to just see a team have a goal line stand is so exciting, or a team barely score a touchdown. Like literally that NFC West division right here in the Bay Area came down to 1 inch, dude. The Seattle Seahawks guy caught that ball and he was 1 inch away from getting the touchdown and winning the NFC West. So I think the limited scoring opportunities makes it a bit more entertaining. And
For
college,
the big plays, yeah, definitely. The highlight plays in there, of course.
hey, I like that NCAA spin move, man, that Braxton Miller move I put on that other day.
Steven, you also forgot one more example of like football coming down to like the final inch that played Ohio State, Michigan. JT Barrett was like 3 inches short
That was
of
a
the
first down, baby.
but the refs called it a first down.
The booth rules of the first down, and it stands. That's the bottom line. Whatever they decide, it decides.
I mean, I can play devil's advocate here. Well, we can think about the Kawhi Leonard shot in the playoffs, right?
Man.
That is more than inches, man. That is like centimeters, man. That's millimeters,
But how
Those
often
calls
does it
are
really
probably
come
curled
down to
back.
that? Because we're always doing a best of 7 instead of like one single elimination game.
Well,
So,
how about this?
That was game 7 though.
When you shoot a hoop, right?
yeah,
How it rolls off your fingers, there could be like 1,000,001 ways that
right.
it could roll off that could change the variation of how the hoop goes in. So I guess you could always say every buzzer beater is a 1 in a million.
Yeah, that is true. That's a great point there. I just liken it to, since basketball is a 7-game series, you can have close games and the series couldn't be close in the end. Like you could have like a sweep where every game was close and then people won't look back on it. Whereas football, since it's single elimination, every play just means more. Like if you have one close game, that close game will be remembered forever. I mean, you look at the Music City Miracle with Tennessee, or the Stephon Diggs, Minneapolis Miracle, Diggs, touchdown. I mean, people are going to remember those games even though they weren't even the Super Bowl. They weren't even the conference championship. But just because it was a 1-game elimination and it came down to one final play. So Anyway, let's get into our topic here, which is really we want to discuss who the best player in the NBA is right now. Not MVP, guys. Be sure to vote in the poll and comment down below. We're talking about best player in the world because I think that a lot of media outlets are taking the annual debate of who should be the MVP, um, and they're milking it to the extreme. But I think the more important question to ask is who truly is the best? Because I think as NBA seasons have progressed and as load management has become a thing, the regular season just doesn't have as much value anymore. And with that, the MVP doesn't have as much value anymore. I mean, I will go on the record and say that I think Giannis Antetokounmpo hands down deserves the MVP award for what he's done in the regular season. He has accomplished a tremendous amount of success with a core that's not as talented as the Clippers or the Lakers. And he's the clear number one seed in the entire NBA. He's doing a great job leading that Bucks team, but he's also putting in his full energy to really carry them over that. And he knows he's really going to need that home court in the Eastern Conference playoffs as well as the NBA Finals. And so the way I look at it, yeah, Giannis is the regular season MVP, but until he does it in the playoffs, I can't put him as the best player in the world. I mean, people are going to point to young LeBron. They're going to say, look, LeBron was the best player in the world before he won a title, but at least he won the East. Giannis blew a 2-0 lead to the third best player in the world, as what Bleacher considers him, Kawhi Leonard. So how can he be the best player in the world when in the playoffs he consistently chokes under the pressure? I feel like we dog on LeBron so much for postseason meltdowns. And one thing that has silently been creeping under us is that Giannis is underperforming every playoffs he's been in.
But I think that's kind of unfair assessment because if you look at the roster that Giannis has to work with, they're younger players.
Right.
So just I don't know if you guys have ever played in like a playoff game in your life, but I have. I've played in tournament basketball, and when the stakes are higher, you definitely have a level of anxiety and nervousness that is heightened. So obviously mistakes are more prone to happen. So one example could be seen if you guys remember the Packers the last time the Packers were in the Super Bowl. They must have had like 8 or 9 drops right off the get go. The first 2 drives, I think they had 8 drops, and then they went 3 and out. You can kind of contribute that to players getting into the feel of the game. So necessarily, it might not be that that Giannis is doing worse in the playoffs. It might just be that his supporting cast isn't stepping up to the plate.
Yeah, and you look at Giannis's statistics; they're not bad in the playoffs. Last year against the Bucks in kind of his meltdown series, he did have 22 points and 13 rebounds a game on 44% shooting and 58% from free throw. Not great numbers, but he still held his own to a certain extent. But I look at it this way, Hansie. LeBron James in Miami and in Cleveland had better rosters than his Eastern opponents, and therefore he won the East, right? But young LeBron, remember, his supporting cast was garbage. I mean, Boobie Gibson, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, who are these people? And he managed to
Mo
win
Williams.
the East. He managed to win the East in just his 5th or 6th season against a Pistons team that was on a run to become a dynasty.
Yeah,
Now,
but you
a lot of
forget
people
one
are,
thing though.
yeah,
So like LeBron, he was like a full-fledged like man come like 16, okay? Giannis like comes from like some like a really poor country, right? So he just filled out his body. Like if you see
right.
from when he joined the league, he was like a scrawny Durant looking guy to now he's like built like LeBron almost. I'd say almost bigger. So I think the comparison to a young LeBron versus a young Giannis is just not fair.
Right. And I guess I get the kind of argument that you have there. And I love that you pointed to that argument, really the physical specimen LeBron was, because a lot of people, they talk about how LeBron was a number 1 pick and Giannis was a number 15 pick. And I get that, guys. But when we're talking about the discussion of best player in the world, at that point, we're not really looking at where you were drafted anymore. We're just saying right now, who is the best player in the NBA? And I say, like, for a guy who hasn't had postseason success, it's tough for me to put him there because at least a young LeBron, when he was crowned the best player in the world, he could win the East at least. At least he could come out of the Eastern Conference Finals. You can harp on his NBA Finals record, but the dude won the East in 07 against the Pistons. And Giannis, he blew a 2-0 lead against the Raptors. So I can't put him as my best player. I'm going to go with LeBron. Hansie, who's your pick for best player in the world?
I would say it's LeBron. I would simply put him above Giannis simply because of the shooting ability. The shooting and selective passing ability by LeBron. If in the coming years, if Giannis can develop that shot just like LeBron did throughout his career, I think the ceiling's the height for the guy.
Right. Let's go over to Trevor for his opinion on best player in the world.
For me, I look at this like all between the three players, Kawhi, Giannis, and LeBron. It's just more of that LeBron has that sheer dominant force factor. Because think about it, when he was on the Miami Heat, him driving into the lane, not too many players could stop him just driving in and dunking. And it's just like he just dominated just driving in. So like that already puts you as like one of the best players in the world if no one can stop you from simply just driving into the hoop. And he's just been through more playoff experience. Yes, you can't really put that saying he's the best in the world because he has this experience, but just the way he carried himself through those different experiences kind of gives him the edge in those aspects, in those close games, closing out series, playing tough game sevens against the Spurs, and is really like his prime with the Miami Heat and duking it out there. So it's like he's good for that, but like at the same time, you could look at Kawhi. He has 2 NBA championships, one short of LeBron. So it's like if he's able to win this year, it's like, is he really better than LeBron and has a chance to win another Finals MVP, which ties LeBron James for 3 Finals MVPs? So now you end up having a discussion: is Kawhi best in the world at that point, being able to tie LeBron James with all those stats right there? So you have to look at that and what he's able to achieve as well.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing here is we're not like trying to overemphasize the historical bias, which is that LeBron has previously had more experience than Giannis. But I think number one, it plays a factor, and number two, it's really hard to go out there and based on a regular season put Giannis over LeBron because so many times we had false alarms saying like, oh, KD's now the best player in the world. It's no longer LeBron, or Kawhi is the best player in the world, or Steph Curry is the best player in the world. And every time the media was wrong. Every time those guys were wrong. So, I'll believe it when I see it. I look at LeBron as, like an Amazon stock, man. Like that stock has just risen dramatically to be like really the best stock in the world. And it's had its ups and downs, right? It's had moments where it's like, okay, like maybe it'll go down and be surpassed by one thing. But the bottom line is that it never has actually been surpassed. It just hasn't. And we need to like not rush to conclusions based on a regular season because we know from previous experience how much LeBron cares about the regular season. All right, Isaiah.
All right, I think all 3 of you guys are wrong. The best player on the planet right now is not LeBron. It is not Giannis. It is Devin freaking Booker.
Oh my
That's
god.
the best player on the planet.
Oh my god.
I didn't
He
think
had
he would
like
do it.
2 good games. He had like
He has
2
not been to
great
the
games,
Olympics.
and then this guy is a Devin Booker dick rider. Oh my
He has not
god.
been to the Olympics, so you can't put him in the race yet.
I'm just pulling your tail, but
You better be, man.
for me, it's no. I mean, I'm pretty sure like some of our viewers already called 911 to have me taken to get drug tested, but I'm gonna go with LeBron James simply because of the finals like championships. Until Giannis wins one, then I can put him over LeBron. But right now you're comparing 3-0. So and Giannis hasn't even had a finals appearance yet. So I can't really crown him as the best player on the planet right now. And LeBron James, when you watch him play, when he's going like downhill on you, it's like a freight train like coming at you. You better move out of the way or else you're gonna like be holding on to that train like right as it goes. So I gotta say it's LeBron James simply because of his power, man. He's just so unstoppable when he's coming downhill at you and in the post.
And his shooting here. And I think we're all in agreement, guys. We do have LeBron James as our best player in the NBA today, despite kind of the crazy season Giannis has amassed. But that brings me to my next question. We'll just do really quickly. your predictions for who's going to win the MVP. I already said Giannis.
I think it's Giannis because like the media or our generation likes flashy new things, and Giannis is this type of flashy new things. Like LeBron's been on the block for many years. Everybody knows him. Everybody likes that flashy new toy, and that's Giannis. So I think Giannis is going to win the MVP because he's like the new thing on the block.
All right, Trevor and Hansie.
No contest from me.
Giannis, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Trevor.
I feel like the media wants to make this spicy, so if they give it to Giannis, that's what I would like to see happen because that gives him two MVPs, and that's just half of LeBron James's 4. So that will just increase the debate to it. So I think Giannis is going to end up getting it.
All right, before we move on to our next topic, I just want to say I totally agree with Isaiah. Everybody in this world right now, they love the flashy new things. They love the new car. They love the new kid coming from down the block. They love the underdog story, the guy from Greece, all the way to the NBA, filled out body, triple doubles every other night, 30 points. Yes, but all we're saying, guys, is do not count LeBron out early once again. 2016, what they say, Steph Curry's the best player in the world. 2012, 2017, KD's the best player in the world. At one point, people were saying Kawhi, and it just goes back and forth, man. LeBron is like a stock, man. He might go up and down, but the overall trend is he continues to go up and build that legacy up. But,
Great point, Steven. That's why Michigan is America's team.
Hold on. I
What a
have something
jump.
to
Okay.
say. I think the stock example was terrible because stocks can go up and down, and some stocks can have downward trends. You should have said the S&P. See what I mean? Because that always has been going up. There you go.
It's hard to beat the market, man. 91% of professional investors lose to the market.
That's
All right.
true. That's because they take upside and downside with insurance.
That's because they pick the flashy
options
picks, Hansie.
Yeah,
See, they get caught up in all the flashiness, man. This is no longer the best decision in the world, and then you know what happens.
I honestly don't approve of the micro transactions that people are doing. You know how bots are trading on the seconds, high margin trades. I don't know, dude. That stuff's so risky. What if you wake up one morning and all your money's gone? The computer fucked up.
Yep. See, guys, don't just blindly buy into flashy new trends. Let's look at the history of things. Let's look at the trends overall. All right, with that being said, let's move on to the NBA bubble discussion. As we all know, they're all over there in Orlando now. They're ready to get started on the season. Preseason has already started. And Bleacher Report recently released a list of their top 22 teams in the bubble and top 50 players in the bubble. We'll start with the players because I know Isaiah's got a red hot take on this. Devin Booker gets ranked number 31. Brandon Ingram, number 47th best player in the bubble. A little low for me. For me, the things that stood out was the fact that Chris Middleton was number 17 because on Bleacher Report's best players for the 2019 to 2020 season, they actually had Middleton ranked number 10. So it's kind of nice that ESPN, the media outlet, another one, disagreed with Bleacher Report. That's pretty cool. And they have LeBron James at number 1, which is great. And then I think Dennis Schroeder at number 50 is a little bit harsh. I mean, the dude is a legitimate 6th man of the year candidate. And I think he's just been a very, very solid point guard for many years. He's just consistently been a great team player despite not being the best shooter. And I just think he's a great glue guy. I don't think he's the 50th best player in the bubble. I would put him 40 to 45. Well, let's go. Yeah.
Steven, I highly, highly disagree with you because you said he's the best 6th man, right?
Yeah.
So if there's 20...
He's in contention, but yeah.
Okay. So if there's 22 teams in the bubble, so that means on every team there's 5 guys ahead of him. So that means there's 110 guys ahead of him. So how can he be 50th something on the report? It makes no mathematical sense. None at all. How can he be 6th man? You have to be the 3rd and a half man to be top 50.
But I think when we talk about 6th man, 6th man doesn't necessarily mean you're the 6th best player on the team. We've seen this with Jason Terry and Ginobili, both of these guys won NBA Finals with legendary scoring runs as the sixth man on their team. Nobody would argue that like Jason Terry or Manu Ginobili are worse than the third best player on the
Well,
Timberwolves.
that was because they couldn't play defense, so they brought them in to get their little scoring spurts in, and then they pulled them out. That
And
was why.
Plus, Schroeder has Chris Paul ahead of him, and Chris Paul, we all know how we feel about him. He's a legend.
No. Okay, that's one place I'll disagree with you. Not all of us agree on that. Chris Paul is so trash. Oh my god, he's
Wow,
like
man.
he's an overpaid midget in the NBA. Like literally, that's what I think. He can't play defense, so you're literally only getting 50% of the player. And then when he's on offense, he can't play in the post, so you're getting like a third less. So 50% minus a third, you're looking at 2/8 of a player. Actually, no, 2/9 of a player. So he gets paid well over what he's worth, in my opinion. He's so trash. He is not a GOAT, not a Hall of Famer anytime.
Well, he's ranked the 15th best player in the bubble, man.
Well, what happened to everyone else? Did they die?
Guess they got diagnosed with COVID, man.
Yeah, there you go. They didn't let him in.
All right, let's go to Isaiah's fiery takes because I know he's amped up to talk about Brandon Ingram at number 47 and Devin Booker at number 31.
All right. So when I first saw this list, I immediately clutched my heart and then I dropped to the floor because I was laughing so hard that I thought I had a heart attack, like I thought I was choking myself to death. Like that's how bad it was. ESPN has lost all credibility with this absolutely disgrace of a list. Like I lose brain cells when I read this list. Devin Booker at number 31. Are you freaking kidding me, ESPN? All the people at ESPN that wrote this list and created this list needs to have their basketball credentials stripped and banned from talking basketball for the next 10 years because these guys literally don't know what the hell they're talking about. I can't believe it. This guy is one of the most underrated players in the NBA. He constantly gets disrespected, and it is so sad to see. That's why, as a huge Los Angeles Lakers fan, as well as a huge Devin Booker fan, I am really hoping that in 2023, when Devin Booker becomes a free agent, he leaves Phoenix and takes his talents to LA and don the purple and gold so that he can showcase his talent in a big market and alongside two of other superstars in LeBron James and Anthony Davis and prove to all the haters out there how great of a basketball player he really is. Devin Booker, since he's entered the NBA, has been one of the best offensive players our league has seen. This guy shoots the lights out from three, which is valued very highly in today's NBA, as well as he can go take it to the hole and create his own shot. And as Stephen Gillespie mentioned, he is an amazing passer. Let me give you guys some numbers just to show you how great of a basketball player Devin Booker is. Devin Booker became one of only 3 players to post multiple seasons of 26 points per game and 6 assists per game before turning the age of 24. The others were LeBron James and Oscar Robertson. That's great company right there. And also he became the youngest guard to reach 7,000 career points, passing the late, great Kobe Bryant. Devin Booker is great. I honestly don't know what else he has to do to show the world how great of a player he is and gets his due respect. I mean, does he have to put up 70 every night? Then people will give him respect. Well, even then, even if he puts up 70 at night, it will still be like a little snippet on the national newspaper. So Devin Booker, listen to me, bro. Take your talents to LA and you will get all the love that you deserve.
Love the impassioned rant, Isaiah. I do agree that Devin Booker should be higher than 31. I'd rank him around 25th best player in the NBA. And then in the bubble,
Lower?
given there's some
Lower.
players that are out because they're not going to the playoffs, maybe like 23rd or 24th. Hansie seems to have something to say about this.
Yeah, so I don't think he'd be higher on the chart. I think he'd be lower. I mean, if you look at it, right, for his age, he's definitely phenomenal. He's exceptional. But if you look at it at the broad scope of the entire league, I don't think you could put him much lower. I mean, if you put him in the same category with other people his age group, yeah, he's on the top of the list, but it's not comparable to the whole entire league.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing that Isaiah brings up again and again. He brings up how Booker is putting up Kobe-like stats for his age. He's putting up, Oscar Robertson-like stats for his age, but that's for his age. What Hansie is saying, we have to look at this in a parallel way. We're comparing it to the league. It's not like the NBA under 24 playoffs or something. You still got to play all the veterans. So if you're looking at the grand scope of the league, he's not better than Luka Doncic, Jimmy Butler, LeBron James, Chris Middleton, or Chris Paul. So you can't rank them too
He's
much.
better than Chris Paul.
Okay, better than Chris Paul, but I just
Devin Booker's better than Chris Paul. Yes,
bunch of
sir.
Yeah,
players
like
that are
5
better than him,
times
right?
better.
Right off the top of my head.
Like,
So
I
you
will
can't
take-
put him too much higher than top 25.
Okay, Steven, look, I would take Devin Booker with one leg and 2 thumbs missing than take Chris Paul.
You are the biggest Chris Paul hater, man. I love it. All right. Isaiah, what about your case for Brandon Ingram? I do want to hear what your thoughts about him being at 47th is.
Yeah, before I get into that, I just also want to say that we need to get Ryan Schreiner on one of these days to debate Hansie, because Hansie's the biggest Chris Paul hater out there, and Ryan's the biggest Chris Paul fan out there. So those
Oh
two,
my
my God, that
God.
would be like Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless right there. But Brandon Ingram at number 47 is another one that is absolutely disrespectful. Like Brandon Ingram, let me give you guys some stats on Brandon Ingram this season. Brandon Ingram is averaging 24.3 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game, 4.3 assists per game, 46.6 field goal percentage, and he's also shooting 38.7 from three. This guy's made massive improvement this season. He also earned his first ever All-Star nod. If we're only taking this season into consideration, I think Brandon Ingram should be probably like in the 20s ahead of some of these players like Fred Van Vliet, Domantas Sabonis, Montrezl Harrell, some of these like bench players. But like I just don't understand why Brandon Ingram gets ranked that low, like 47 out of 50. Are you kidding me? That's just plain disrespect.
Yeah, 47 is a bit low for me. And I think people are letting Brandon Ingram's, winning percentage and his time in LA dictate too much of their opinion. I mean, it's the guy's first year or second year in New Orleans. So he's still really getting adjusted to the team and everything. So let's not be too harsh there. I think Ingram, with the right system, he's going to continue to jump as a player. And as a 24.3 point per game scorer with a career high 38.7% from the arc, I don't care how you're looking at it. You could talk about him versus the scope of the league or whatever, but he's not the 47th best player. I would put him somewhere around 35 to 40. Let's go over to Trevor for his takes on the list overall.
There's one thing at the list that I'm not too pleased with is where Paul George is sitting at number 8. I feel like that's a bit too high. But at the
Way
same
too
time,
high.
as you scroll through the back part of the list, I think Jimmy Butler's definitely way better than Paul George. And then it's just you just get to the point where it's I feel like Paul George is where Russell Westbrook is, a 12 spot, maybe 13, give or take. It depends how you feel, what he can contribute in that sense. But he does not deserve the 8th spot. I guarantee you that. He is a good factor for the Clippers and a great counterpart to Leonard, but that's really it. And then back to Devin Booker, I think he's fine where he's at. Yes, he could be a little bit higher, but 31 is 31. Because Zion, if you're trying to say, I know Isaiah said in the past that Devin Booker is better than Zion, you got to be joking. Zion had a great season coming back from injury and just dominated. So it's Zion being at 23, that potential can still rise by the end of this season. So I'm hoping that Zion can actually, get back get back to the swing of things after he handles family issues. So once he gets his 2 quarantine weeks in, he's going to be a force to reckon with the Pelicans, and maybe slip into that A spot for the playoffs in the West.
Yeah,
Trevor.
interesting, man.
I
Zion
think Trevor's
Williamson
off.
had 19 games. 19 games as a
He
sample
still hooped
size.
in those 19.
Devin
He still
Booker
hooped.
has 5 years to show.
He still hooped in those
And
19.
no playoff experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
He has as many points in the playoffs as me, you, Hansie, and Trevor combined. Zero. Anyway,
Well, I think Trevor's wrong when he's coming to Paul George because he's forgetting that Paul George just came off like an MVP caliber season. And he's been playing lights out. So I think Trevor's forgetting.
yeah, and I think one interesting thing about the Paul George and Jimmy Butler comparison is that these are two guys that have been so frequently compared ever since they got drafted and kind of transcended into stars around 2013 to 2015. They've been compared so much ever since then, but their careers have gone completely different ways. Paul George is the flashy player that puts up the big numbers, but his teams don't necessarily always benefit from it, and they don't necessarily like crave him. He left Indiana. Indiana continued to be a playoff team. He left OKC. They continue to be a playoff team. So Paul George hasn't made that transcendent impact where he's the absolutely necessary franchise cornerstone on the team. Whereas Jimmy Butler is the opposite. He's not always put up the most flashy stats. You won't catch Jimmy Butler dropping 28 a game or a crazy high percentage on three. But for some reason, every team he goes to gets better with him, and every team he leaves gets worse without him. So it's like Butler is more of the non-flashy winner who contributes to the team's wins despite sometimes being a bit hot-headed. Whereas Paul George is that volume scorer that really ignites the league and excites the fans, but not always, the absolute monster that you need on your team for sure. Just interesting. But with that being said, I want to get into our next topic about the NBA bubbles, which is really looking at the 22 best teams heading into the bubble. Bleacher Report had a list, man, and I can't tell if it's a troll job or not. I'm having a tough time. I got it pulled up here for you guys all to see, but they ranked the Pelicans number 1. They ranked the Clippers number 2. That's reasonable. Bucks number 3. Heat number 4. But then the Lakers are all the way at number 11 in the list. So we have the Lakers at number 11, best team in the bubble out of 22, and the Clippers at number 2, but then the Pelicans at number 1. I got to get Hansie's take on this.
Well, I think what's his name? Howard. Well, with the whole controversy around Howard not playing, missing their second 7-footer, I think has definitely brought them up on the list. But they should definitely be ahead of the Heat, in my opinion. I think the Heat are a little way too high ranked right now, and definitely not number 1. The Pelicans are definitely a sleeper team, but I'd give them the bottom of the play. Like I would switch the Lakers and the Pelicans. I think that would make it the most sense.
I think so too. I'm just not sure who created this list, man. You talk about blasphemy. Isaiah thought Devin Booker at number 31 and Ingram at number 47 was bad. This is on a whole nother level of bad. This is the hard drugs level of bad, man. Like, I don't know how you can rank the Lakers number 11. I know they're missing like Bradley and they may be missing Howard, but come on, man. LeBron James, Anthony Davis, that's at least a top 3 to 5 team in the league. I think they're still the best in the league. And the Pelicans, dude, they're the 10th seed in the Western Conference Finals. They might not even make the playoffs. They might have to win out to get into the playoffs. So it's a little bit far-fetched. I think this list is just straight up ludicrous. Let's go to Isaiah and Trevor.
Isaiah, have at it.
Listen, the only reasoning that I could give to, some way make this list, not as controversial like for the Pelicans.
By saying you wrote it.
No, it's because maybe they judge this list based on like the excitement of the the starting 5. I think that's the only way I could reason with this. Maybe they judged it based on like excitement because the fans want to see Zion, they want to see the Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, the Pelicans starting five go up and down, up and down, up and down. Like, that's the only way I could justify this list. But I agree with y'all. You know, this list is utter blasphemous. That's why I didn't even look at it until like literally just now, because I know how blasphemous it was. Like, you put the Lakers at what? Number
11.
Number 11. That's ludicrous, man. Like, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, like two of the top 5 players in basketball. And you have like supporting cast with Danny Green, who's a lights out 3-point shooter. And then you have JaVale McGee and those guys. This is just stupid, man. Like, I really don't have any words to describe this list. And Houston being a number 8, that's a joke as well. Like Russell Westbrook, James Harden. I got nothing, man. I got nothing.
The only thing I agree on this list is the Nuggets being at number 10, because the Nuggets are what I see as the fake ID of the NBA. They're a great regular season team, but they're just not set up for playoff success. Physically, they can't keep up with the Warriors. I don't care how much weight you lose, Jokic. You're just not going to be able to keep up with teams that play that 3-and-D fast break type of ball, like Houston and other teams like that, and then the Clippers and the Lakers. Those teams that can get up and down the court are going to have a field day and just run you off the court. And we saw that with the Warriors. Like when Durant and Clay and Steph played the Nuggets last year when they were the 2 seed, every time they played them in the regular season, it was like a 20 to 30 point blowout. And you're going to say, oh, it's the Warriors. But the Blazers played them close. They were competitive. There were games where they cut it to single digits and made it go down to the final buzzer. The Nuggets, they had no business being on the same court as some of the top tier teams in terms of 3-point shooting. They're just too slow. They run too much of a half court style. Jokic cannot be a main star of a championship team. They're the fake ID of the NBA, and that's the only thing I agree with. And then what Hansie said about the Heat, man, the Heat at number 4 is high. I mean, yeah, they have a great story in the guy like Jimmy Butler, who's not a big numbers guy. He's kind of a mid-tier numbers guy, but is a big winner. We love the grit and grind of him. He's got that like 90s basketball type of mentality, but you stack him up against the Rockets, you stack him up against the Lakers, and even the Raptors. I don't think they're better than these teams. I just think that the Miami Heat are still a developing team. We haven't seen their peak yet. I think they're a number 8 team in the league.
Yeah, Steven, and like using my other reasoning that I said earlier about maybe this list was created based on the reasoning of the excitement. You can't even justify that being putting the Pelicans ahead of the Lakers. Like, I mean, who would rather see LeBron James who would rather see Zion Williamson, Lonzo Ball, and Brandon Ingram over LeBron James and Anthony Davis? Like, people would pick the Lakers all day. So it doesn't even make sense at all.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on this list, guys?
Yeah, I don't like where the Rockets are sitting at 8. I think they should be a little bit higher than that. I think they could be like 5 or 6, give or take, because like they're just better than the Raptors, the Dallas Mavericks. It's just like Russell and Harden. They've been in the playoffs. They know how to take care of business. They even played together. So it's just like they should at least be in the 5th spot or 6th. Come on. And then the Lakers being 11th, I think they're just trying to make LeBron James have like an underdog story at this point. Be like, he's down in the dumps, being in 11th, he's not going to have something great. But like, we all know the Lakers are like the best team. So I don't know what this report is even trying to create. It's just that bad.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that being said, guys, it was great having everybody on the show. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. And it's been great having you, Hansie.
Thanks for having me, and I hope you guys can have me later on.
Okay. All right. And we will leave you guys with some outro music, and happy Friday, everyone.
Man, I'm like a young gun, fully black barack. I cry teardrops over the massive attack. I only make hits like I work with a racket and back. Look at my jacket and hat, so down berserk, so down to earth. I'm bringing gravity back. Adopted by the major, I want my family back. People work hard just to get all their salary tax. Look, I'm just a writer from the ghetto like Mallory Black. Man, where the hell's all the sanity at? Damn, I used to be the kid that no one cared about. That's why you have to keep screaming till they hear you out.